Welcome to Magnify Your Message. Inspiration magnified.
I think a lot of what is wrong in the world today, we don't consider what somebody else might be going through, what struggle, what pain, what challenge that they're going through that causes them to behave in a certain way.
We're regular people that sees things that's wrong with this world. And my whole goal is to leave the world better than I found it.
Welcome back to Magnify Your Message, where we spotlight the change makers, the visionaries, and the people who aren't just talking about making a difference, they're doing it. I'm your host, Cheryl Hunter, and today we are talking transformation. Not just personal reinvention, but systemic, community wide change. I have two powerhouse guests with me today who are leading that charge. First up, Mario Henry, former NFL wide receiver turned financial expert, entrepreneur, and housing innovator. Alongside Mario, we have Todd Lane, a technology visionary with over 2 decades' experience in AI, blockchain, and digital transformation, who's shaping how industries leverage technology to drive real impact. But what really brings these two together? It's their shared mission to change the world for the better. Today, we're diving into their journey from being competitive athletes to passionate advocates, tackling issues like homelessness, foster care, and financial literacy along the way. This is a conversation about breaking cycles, creating opportunity, and using your voice to cause real, lasting change. So grab a seat, turn up the volume, and get ready. Hang on to your hats, folks. You are going to be blown away by today's interview. The impact, the heart, and the difference that these men make is going to rock your world like the way it is actually rocking the world. Welcome, Mario Henry, Todd Lane. Thank you for being here.
It's great to be here. I'm almost waiting to see who's coming. That
Yeah.
Who we introducing?
wow.
Oh, God, what a delight to be with you. Who are you? What do you provide for the world?
Mario, you could take it away, man.
Well, we're regular people that sees things that's wrong with this world. And my whole goal is to leave the world better than I found it. So that's who I am. I'm somebody that had a lot of success, kind of success as being an athlete growing up. But I think that when you're successful, it's not based upon who you are and what you've done, it's how many people you can help. I think that's what dictates to me success. So I want to be successful, not the success that people may think, but I want to get as many people over the hump as possible.
Yeah.
Amen.
And Cheryl, and that just segues into how myself and Mario we linked up. We have a same alignment. As former athletes, a lot of times when you're growing up, you get all the attention. And I know for me, when I was growing up, I was always taught, to treat people the way that you wanted to be treated, regardless of their state in life. And for me, what I used to see a lot of times was, I hated seeing kids that couldn't defend themselves that would get bullied. I felt like I needed to be the protector of them. And so I would try to use my platform. I would try to use whatever quote unquote status I might have had to help those that were the unseen, the people that a lot of times get pushed to the background because, they had some of the funniest stories and personalities, but they were, so fearful because of what had happened to them. And so that's definitely my motivation. And I know as me and Mario got to know each other more, we saw, even though, we have different ways that we express ourselves, I know Mario has a great big heart and I know I have a big heart. And so we just want to bring as many of them with us as possible to make this a better place.
So, what were your individual journeys like that led you to meeting one another? Would you take a step back and share that with us?
I'll start. Well, I was always a very skinny kid. And so I wasn't really allowed to play football growing up. I snuck and played football my freshman year and forged my mom's signature to get in.
No.
So, so I just was able to talk about that. I was like, Mom, the statute of limitations is up. That was like 40 years ago. But so I wanted to play. I wasn't too good. I ended up being like fourth string, and I was kind of ridiculed by a lot of my teammates because of the fact that I was young for my grade, and then I was small, and so I just kept on trying to persevere. And then one summer, I grew about 5 inches over the summer, gained some weight, and then I ended up playing varsity, and then my junior year, by the time I met Todd, was my junior year. I was getting a lot of attention through the state, through the America, everything. And then it persevered into track. And then I ended up becoming an All-American in two sports. But then Todd and myself, we played against each other. And then we ended up being teammates once I transferred from South Carolina to Rutgers. Then we had everything to where we were cool during that time. And then we kind of got back up once Facebook started and everything. And then he saw I was trying to do my own thing. And I'll let Todd get the handoff from there.
Yeah, yeah. And what's funny, I'll tell a story that always, man, Mario would let you know how good he was. And he was very good in high school. What's funny, we both lived in towns next to each other. I lived in a place called Willingboro, New Jersey. Mario lived in Mount Laurel. We were right next to each other. Mario had family. He knew a lot of people. And because of his track acumen, he was known in Willingboro because Willingboro was where Carl Lewis came from. So we were known for track and, athletics and things. And I remember one year, my senior year, his junior year, man, we were supposed to beat them. His team was Lenape. We were supposed to beat them handedly, but I would have to say he probably had one of the best games of his career because he was scoring touchdowns and telling everybody about it. And I wanted to get my hands on him so bad. But I recognized that, he was definitely a very talented individual. And so, I went to Rutgers at the time. He went off to South Carolina. And then when I found out he was transferring to Rutgers and, he had a car, I didn't at the time. So he used to bring me home, and my dad, God rest his soul, he was the cook in my house, right? And he wasn't letting you come into the house without you eating. So Mario be like, nah, I don't want none. And I remember this one infamous time my dad had made some spaghetti, and Mario like, oh my God. So from that
Yeah.
time, we continued to grow our relationship and through being teammates. And then, I graduated and went on and started working. Mario was fortunate. He was a very good athlete. He went on to the NFL. And as Mario said, we kind of lost contact. He was over in Europe. I was, in corporate America. And then, as he said, when social media came on with Facebook, and that's another funny story because Mario's always been an entrepreneur. He had a company at that time, and he was talking on Facebook how his computers were all messed up, and he was trying to get some help. And he was like, "Man, what are these guys charging? They're trying to charge an arm and a leg." So I said, "Man, don't worry about it. That's my field. I was in information technology." I said, "Man, I'll come over there and help you." And that's what led to the reconnection for us because he started sharing with me. And Mario has this. He's definitely a visionary. I respect him for that. He has some really out of the box thinking, and he started sharing with me some ideas he had, and I was like, I have never heard. How can I be down? And from that point, we started building a not just a friendship. We started building a business relationship. He was sharing with me, and we started building and building. And we would do things in the financial service arena and started in the real estate. And then he shared with me his program he had which I thought was ingenious, that he utilized his credit experience that he learned. And we were looking to help because we looked at it that the first thing for people to create wealth for themselves and to be able to be self-sufficient, one of those things would be, obtaining and purchasing their home. And so there was a lot of people that had the income, had the ability to pay, because they're paying rent, right? They can pay a mortgage. But they had some other things, credit or some other things. And so he created this whole My Landlord is Fired program. And we then started helping people get into their homes. So from then, it just started evolving. Again, his mind never stops, right? And he said, hey, we can help them get houses, but how about, these demographics like kids aging out of foster care? How are we going to, who's going to help them? Veterans that are homeless, and he can share his story of how that impacted him. Both my father and his father are veterans. We're military brats, and that was something that was dear to our hearts. And so that was one of the demographics we wanted to use our entrepreneurial experience due to real estate and financial services to create a better plan that people didn't have to depend on the government.
Wow. In a world where today the definition of success is a lot of, for many, very hollow things like follower count.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Mario, you started out talking about your definition of success and the lives that are transformed because you exist.
Mhm.
Tell us about this work with foster kids aging out and veterans. Please, I'd love to hear more about that.
So when, I always was kind of like a lone wolf, rebellious and everything like that. When I got to New England, they gave me number 12, which was now Tom Brady's number. So that's cool. But back then that was an insult because receivers wore numbers 80 to 89. Now they wear anything. So I always felt like I was on the outside looking in. I always felt like I needed to be able to be that one to step up or speak up when something wasn't correct. So I had a motivational speaking career shortly after the NFL. So I was speaking to kids all throughout the country about having the mind of an athlete, being able to have that channel in them and having that vision as far as what we have when we're playing sports. And it led to, a pretty good, successful career during that. But I knew I wanted more. And I guess fate came to where I had to adopt both my grandsons, which one of the ones I was just with, but both of them have some special needs. But I had to go to foster care class before I was able to adopt them. And I was appalled when I heard about the fact that a good percentage of these kids age out, meaning they turn 18 and then the parents just say, you know what, I want to get younger kids. It keeps me getting money. And so they just throw the kids out. And when I started hearing about these statistics about that, 70% of the females will be pregnant within 2 years, 40% will actually go to jail at some point, 50% will be homeless. I said, I was always the type of person that says, this is not right. We have to do something about this. So me and Todd gathered, and when, my football career ended, I was one of those statistics of being the people who was bankrupt or didn't have money shortly after the career ended. And then, I found myself, this was dating before I had kids and everything like that. I'm sitting there and I kind of was too proud to tell my parents what my financial situation was. Then I moved out to Houston against their better judgment. And then things didn't work out with what I was doing. And then I just stayed in my car for like 3 days, homeless, didn't have anything. And I'll never forget, I woke up and I was kind of like in a fog. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I saw a guy with no legs, no arms, and he had a military, jacket over him and he was asleep. And I just said, man, I said, I'm in here by choice. This guy put it all on the line. Even though I'm not a war person, I'm almost like a hippie. I don't believe in all that. But he did something that I wouldn't do. I would not just rightfully just sign up and die for my country. I feel like I have a different mission in my life. but he did it, and I respected that more than anything. And then I said, veterans should not be homeless. Kids aging out should not be homeless. Sexual survivors should not be homeless. Battered women who staying with people who are abusive because they don't have better ways to be able to advance themselves, that should not be. So I put all my heart and soul into creating a program that would allow people to have the ability to get a trade and be able to learn financial literacy, life skills, and let's be able to get them out of dependence on the government and get them by themselves. So that it came just from me, just being that type of person, that it shouldn't be that way. Instead of just looking the other way because we're uncomfortable to see a homeless person, I'm like, you know, and giving them $1 or something like that. What's that going to do? Let's get to this. Let's stop worrying about treating the cause. I mean, effect, and treat the cause of where we are. That's the problem. What I think the problem is with the way on how they're handled.
So you've got this deep core value to take a stand for what's right. And Todd, you wanting to end bullying and also being a person who stands for what should be and what's right. And so together now, what did you create?
Together, we put both of our morals together, and we created a program using our football background, using the term of a playbook, and being able to showcase what this actually was. And with the help of a company called Magnify Your Message, through this individual that was so dynamic.
What was her name?
I forgot her name. Right, it's like
Cheryl,
Meryl or Where or
Cheryl Hunter. Cheryl Hunter. Yeah, that's her name.
Cheryl Hunter.
No.
What happened was it came from an idea, and we had the top experts in there to get with us to be able to come in, be able to understand how we wanted to do something, because there's a lot of great ideas out there. But if you don't have a coach, just like what we did when we were playing, to be able to help you chisel everything in, and this isn't, I'm not saying this is a commercial, I'm just keeping it real. If you don't have that, it's very difficult to go from idea to the masses. And here we are.
And here you are. And so you've taken this, you took this kernel of an idea. It shouldn't be this way. People shouldn't be homeless. And what did you start providing for people with this?
So we have some very exciting projections that's going into what it is that we're doing. The city of Fresno is proposing to give us 20 acres for us to be able to do our first campus. And our campus would be featuring about 1,000 beds. And we're going to have a building, and this is all going to be built. And we've got an attracted team of, just like what we did in the sports. I can't do everything. I don't know about construction, but we found people that were good in that, and they've bought into our vision. So we're going to be presenting to the city of Fresno, California, a model that we feel that would actually be duplicatable to get to the core reason why people are homeless. Instead of just worrying about giving them blankets and giving them food for today, let's get and go back to the strategy on where everything is. And then now with the playbook, it's not just getting them food, shelter, everything like that. If we just give that, it's not going to be anything if we can't provide the financial literacy as well as career certifications. So when we raise money, it's more or less along the lines of, hey, let's invest in this individual. Let's give them dignity so they're not laying in the street. And let's give them something, because if we don't get their basic needs met, then from this point, they're not going to focus on the areas of what they're going to need to be. That's been a study that's almost 100 years old, that we got to make sure that they have all their basic needs met. Then we can be able to put them in a position to where they can have a chance to learn what they didn't learn, so they could be, self-sufficient.
And just to add to what Mario shared about, the program we put together, Cheryl, one of the things that we kind of touched on, but, as we shared about our backgrounds, myself with the bullying, one of the things, and Mario probably can concur with this as well, coming from the perspective of being former athletes where everybody kind of idolized us, and we kind of got exceptions and things of that nature. That's just real, right? Entertainers, that happens too as well. But going from that to seeing the struggles of Mario's grandsons, and I have a special needs son, where to see the difficulty and the challenges that they go through humbled me, right? It gave me a totally different perspective of, what someone else has to go through. And I think a lot of what is wrong in the world today, we don't consider what somebody else might be going through, what struggle, what pain, what challenge that they're going through that causes them to behave in a certain way. And so one of the things that we looked at, we understand there's a lot about mental health, right? As Mario said, you can supply a room, you can supply blankets, but the other area of need, as we address the holistic needs of an individual, is their mental health. And a lot of times these people coming out of homelessness or bullying, they're like PTSD, right? They're dealing with trauma. And in order for them to be able to focus, to be able to absorb financial literacy, to be able to absorb education that they can then have a career skill, we have to deal with that mental trauma that many of them, and even me and Mario, recognize some traumas that occurred in our lives that caused us to behave in certain ways and to do certain things. And from that experience on our individual situations, we understand that in order to move forward, in order to make that person be whole and be able to become back and integrated back into society, we have to address that mental trauma.
After I was kidnapped, I created an educational framework to help people overcome adversity. I thought, you know what? Okay, I could read books, I could listen to different authors speak about that, but I felt like I needed something more active. So I thought, let me find people who've gone through real trauma and listen to them. I'm not the first person who's gone through adversity. Let me listen to what others who've gone through it have experienced, how they overcame or didn't, and learn from them. I got really curious. But one of the things that I learned was that everybody experiences trauma. Now, that may seem elementary and obvious, but at the time I was a child, I was a teenager still, and didn't realize that was the case. I just thought, well, there's big things like someone experiences something that it's undeniably trauma, but if you look at it like there's a spectrum, all kinds of events fall on that spectrum that we may not have previously thought were traumatic. And you know, you're speaking about, both of you, the things that you were faced with throughout the course of life, and just going from one mode of living into another. Like, for example, being a competitive athlete and then not, or being in the NFL. And like you had talked about, even Todd, like how you're renowned, you're given special accommodations as an athlete, as a competitive athlete. You've got a particular listening from the public. They want to know more. They laud you with praise. You're in the spotlight, and then suddenly it's over.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
And
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing. I think that if we remain a little open to it, we can see when we experience trauma, I think it can soften our hearts and let us recognize that everybody is. There's that old saying, be kind. You have no idea what someone's facing. And you bring up such good points. If we fail to address the mental component of the individual, it would be no better than, Mario, how you originally said, what am I going to give him, $1? What good is that going to do?
Exactly.
And Todd, as you're talking about helping the whole individual, yes, financial literacy, yes, job skills, yes, meeting those basic survival needs, but then catering to and caring for the whole individual, what have they faced mentally, emotionally? And how do we
And yeah,
shepherd them through that?
yeah, and to your point, like I said, I draw from experience, and there's a couple things as you were talking, Cheryl, that just kind of triggered in my brain. And I love this guy right here. We have our spats back and forth. We can talk to we pretty hard, but I know Mario, it comes from a place of compassion and true love. Um, and I know I got to understand him better as he shared with me some of the things that when I look at Mario from the outside and how intense and focused he is, I would have never thought that he had gone through what he had gone through. And a lot of times, as you say, Cheryl, we look too much on the surface and don't consider what might be behind the mask. I always call it we wear mask, right? And a lot of times people don't show that. And another incident that really kind of started bringing me understanding was my daughter when she was diagnosed with MS, and at the time she was in high school, and I just thought she was being lazy. And some of the things that I would say to her, get up, you're being lazy, not understanding what was going on because of her MS with her brain and her fatigue and brain fog and all that she was dealing that I couldn't see on the surface. When I found out, I just felt so bad about it. But again, it was a lesson that, as you mentioned, that we have to understand the holistic aspect of what people actually have gone through. And the last thing I'll say is you hit it a nail on the head. I remember my last game. I didn't walk off the field on my own. I was injured. And at that time, it went from Todd, the football player and all that stuff, to now you're useless. And I would have to say that I think the next couple of years I was probably in a certain state of depression because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what my identity was because everything up until that, Todd the athlete. So we talk about this a lot and we recognize, and that's one of the critical parts of our program that we've now implement is the mental health aspect, because people have to deal with those traumas to really be able to move forward in a meaningful way.
Isn't it a glorious thing that we now collectively have started to destigmatize mental health? Could you imagine, like, back in the day where you just sucked it up? You just dealt with it. Hey,
Get
walk it
over it.
off, or whatever that was. They lobotomized people.
Yeah,
What?
yeah.
Yeah,
What?
That
yeah.
happened to my grandmother. Yep. Mm.
God bless her. She dealt with something like that, like mental health issues and
Well, no, my grandmother on my maternal grandmother, when she had my mother and my uncle very young, and this was back when, women were, had, not a whole lot of rights, and her husband passed away after the war. And she lost her mind because of the fact that, there wasn't support for a woman with two children and no husband.
oh,
And she became very violent and suffered, basically meant, and they lobotomized her.
oh God. It's
Yeah.
how far we have come and how far we have yet to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Gentlemen, how can people learn more about you? How can they get involved? Where do they go?
With Todd.
Yeah. So we have several different organizations, but we have our U.S. Housing Exchange, and we have our Playbook for Life. And we also have our nonprofit, the Halo Foundation, who has a partner with Freed Wealth. So you can definitely reach us at info@ushousingexchange.com, as well as Playbook for Life. That's playbook, the number four, life.com.
Beautiful.
And you can reach us at either one of those
Well, let
addresses.
me let me go into some more. Playbook for Life is our financial literacy series because we are doing a broken down version for the homeless, but we also want to warn the general public because the general public probably doesn't have an idea that's because pensions are dead now, that people are going to outlive their retirement for the most part. So we created a survival's guide for people so they can understand how to maximize their credit, be able to understand what the 401k can't do, et cetera. USHousingExchange.com is about to be its own social media platform for people who want to buy, sell, flip, and invest. So we want to be able to help not only the people who are on ground zero that need to be able to go up, but we never stop. You know, just like in belts and karate and everything like that, you keep going. So we want to meet people where they are, but then we don't want people to not get into the system. So we created the Halo Foundation, USA.org, so then people can understand how we're working within the community, how they'll be able to help, how they'll be able to contribute to NFTs, getting the likeness of some of the people that we're helping. So we're gonna continue to go until we can't go anymore. That's what being an athlete has taught us, and that's what working with you have taught us to be able to chisel our focus in and be able to have a clear, defined message. And our clear, defined message is taking a page from Harriet Tubman. And even though we're trying to reach freedom, we're only going to get free as how many people we can take with us.
Amen. Well, I will make sure that all of your contact information is in the liner notes of the episode so
Well,
people
thank
can
you so
find you.
much.
What would you like to leave people with today?
I would like people to realize that empathy comes from being able to look at pain. Pain. Like when I heard your story, I felt your pain. And if we don't feel the pain from what that person's going to experience, we will do nothing other than thank people for their service or sorry for your loss or thoughts and prayers.
Prayers, right?
They're not actionable. So, what I would take people away with is get off your butt and look at what people are doing and stop just looking at what your own life is and expand past your own eyes and look to see where you can be able to help. Even if it's one person, just help because life is hard. This existence is hard. You know, no matter what type of face we walk around with, behind this mask is a whole lot of other things that's going on that's keeping us up at night, staring at the ceiling, thinking if we got it all figured out, which we don't. So we're all in this together. And life's a big game, and none of us are going to get out alive. So we might as well come together and try to make the best, make the best of this, and stop focusing on things that separate us. What we look like, who we want to have sex with, or who we are, you know, what our melanin looks like on us. It's all stupid. Let's look to see what we can do to unite. That's what I would leave with.
We have more in common than we have in difference.
Amen.
Community, we can do more together than apart, you know, and it's to me is as simple as that. You know, find the commonality that we all have. We all want to be happy. You know, we all want to have, you know, a house, a home. You know, we want to grow our families. We want to see them mature. We want to create memories. You know, all those things are we have more in common than all this divisiveness. So it's hey, we can do more together than we can do apart. And hey, consider someone else and how they're dealing with something. You know what I mean? And that will help you be able to have a better perspective and compassion. So that's what I would leave.
Thank you. My heartfelt takeaway from today is this definition of success that you two have created about it's not about the money and the fame and all the traditional markers of success, but it truly is in the lives changed. Thank you for
And take
sharing
none of that
your
with us.
life-changing stories.
We can only
Amen.
immortalize ourselves based upon what we leave behind. And monetary stuff, we can't take it with us. So where we are.
Thank you for sharing your mission and your story and your heart today. It's a
Thanks a
delight.
lot, Cheryl. Keep in contact with us. We want to know what's going on.
Yeah. Thank you, Cheryl. We appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Thank you. What an incredible conversation. Mario Henry and Todd Lane are living proof that transformation is possible. If there is one thing to take away from today's episode, it's this: real impact starts with action. And no matter how each of us chooses to be in action, we all have the power to create change. As always, I'm Cheryl Hunter, and I will see you next time. Until then, keep using your voice and your passion to magnify your message. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, and share this episode with everyone that you feel it would benefit. Thank you in advance. And when you're ready to share your story and your work with the world, I can help. Visit CherylHunter.com to learn how. I am Cheryl Hunter, and until next time, know that your message has the power to change the world.